Sacramento Kings turned down a trade reportedly for Trae Young because of his contract demands. We can talk a little bit about that. Plus, the Lakers and the Heat are reportedly moving forward on Andrew Wiggins trade talks. We're going to talk a little bit about that as well. And the best players left on the board after round one of the NBA draft. We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of NBA Central, your number one spot for everything basketball related. I'm the host, Derrick Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at NBA Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today. I had come in here planning to talk about the best players left on the board after round one of the draft, but we had a couple of news items that dropped that I do think is worth addressing. First off, The Athletic and Sam Amick reported that the Kings officials ultimately decided to pass on pursuing Trae Young due to concerns over how much an extension would cost and his offensive first style of play, which now brings into doubt, or to question at least, Young's future in Atlanta and how that's going to play off if the Atlanta Hawks and the Sacramento Kings were having trade conversations. That could mean that the Hawks are more open to trading Trae Young than initially thought. Right now, I have been somebody that I do think the Hawks should move off of Trae Young. That's just my thought process. Is I think you have now cleared, and even more so with your draft last night, you've cleared a path to go younger and more organically. But with the trade of Kristaps Porzingis, that could also change some things for the Atlanta Hawks. If you now have the defensive big man that can also score, that actually could be a good pairing with Trae Young and what you have going on there as the Atlanta Hawks. So I think it's going to be a twofold thing, right? The Hawks, may not make a decision anytime soon on that. They could very well go into the season, but as the contract extension talks get closer with Trae Young, you have to make an ultimate decision on that. That could lead the Hawks to a place where they may decide to move off of Trae Young. Again, I don't know how the Kristaps part plays into all of that. You get a player like Kristaps Porzingis, to me, that means that you are going to try to win now. I think that your lineup makes a little bit more sense now as well with what you have down there with Kristaps, Jaylen Johnson, Rasheer, Dyson Daniels, right? You have some really nice players that you're building off of and things down there, and I think that just makes some sense for those teams. But when it comes down to it, you'll see what happens there ultimately. But I like what's going on here. I like what the Atlanta Hawks are doing. They also got Drake Powell yesterday as well, so you have that also to look at. So I mean, they're building something there, and we'll ultimately see what ends up happening with this team. But it does raise some questions on, all right, what is happening now with this being the standard of where you're going? What is, if you're open to moving Trae Young, what are you doing there? And that's something that it doesn't have to be answered right away, but the answer does need to come sooner rather than later, because you're getting to the point where you're going to have to, and I'm actually mistaken. They drafted Drake Powell, but I think he was traded to the Brooklyn Nets. So there you go on that one. So yeah, we'll see what ultimately happens with the Atlanta Hawks and what they do. I do think the trade of Kristaps puts them in a position to try to compete now, but he can sign a 4-year extension worth $228.6 million, and we'll see what happens with that. The new general manager there as well has not indicated if they do plan on keeping Trae Young or not. He hasn't shown his hand yet there, but his comments in a press conference have said that it seems like there's some dialogue between Trae saying this: we're locked in with Trae. We're just locked in for next season, ready to move forward, the best team that we could possibly be moving forward. And so with Jaylen Johnson, Anika there, Dyson Daniels there. They have a number of players that they can look to keep it going, and we'll see what happens when it comes down to that. But I think overall, too, the Kings are clearly looking for a point guard. I think that highlights that, and we'll see if they find their point guard this offseason. So let me know what you guys think on that down below. The Kings ultimately deciding not to make a trade for Trae Young due to the contract demands and his offensive first style of play. Seems they may be focused more towards two-way players there, but let me know what you guys think on that down below. From one trade that is off the table now to a trade that is reportedly, being talked about, and this is coming from several reports in regards to it, is that the Lakers and the Miami Heat are working out a Rui Hachimura for Andrew Wiggins trade that's coming down, that they are kind of locked in on the trade conversation. Now, that does not mean that it's going to happen, but it does mean that they are exploring those options. Now, Andrew Wiggins is 3 years older than Rui Hachimura, right? I do think that Hachimura had a really nice season for the Lakers last year, 13 points, 5 rebounds, 1.4 assists, and right under a steal per game last year. He had shooting splits of 51% from the field, 41% from three, and 77% from the free throw line. Those are really good splits there. Wiggins, a player that averaged 18 points, 4.5 rebounds, 2.6 assists. He shot the ball 45% from the field, 37% from three-point range. Is another player. He played 60 games last season. I don't understand the swap. It's also a swap that can't be done straight up one for one. So either like a Maxi Kleber or a Gabe Vincent, who used to be with Miami, would have to be included in that as well. Sources have said that the Miami Heat are trying to push for Dalton Connect to be included in that trade, as the Lakers may not want to trade any picks 31 or 32 in a move like this. We'll see what happens here. I'm glad that the teams are having dialogue on it. The switch and it's a little questionable to me, like what is either team getting out of it, but I know that the Miami Heat aren't necessarily as high on Andrew Wiggins if they can move him. I just thought that the Heat had their sights set on maybe different players when it came down to that, but it does seem like they're moving forward with trade talks. Now, that does not mean that something's imminent. It doesn't mean that a trade's going to go down tomorrow, but they are locked in on trade talks right now to see if both sides can come to a conclusion on a deal that both teams feel comfortable on. But let me know what you guys think on this. I mean, the Miami Heat getting a little bit younger with Rui Hachimura makes some sense. I do think he can play off Bam a little bit well, too, as they're probably I think they're probably going to go into the season starting Khalil Ware and Bam as the 4 and 5 combo there. Rui Hachimura could make some sense there as the 3, as they keep trying to make their roster make a little bit more sense. We'll see what happens with the Miami Heat. They're a team that I've learned to never count out because of what there's just Heat culture. Eric Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in the game of basketball as well. And they're a team that's always looking to win. But I do think at some point, Pat Riley and his avoidance of ever going full rebuild does really turn into something there. And, we'll see how it ultimately happens. But they have some solid players down there for sure. We'll see what ends up happening with that. Nikola Jovic is a player that they could very well look to move to bring in some more talent as well around that roster. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. Let's get into one last topic before we talk more draft stuff. Brad Stevens comes out and says that the Celtics foundation of Jaylen Brown, Derrick White, and Jason Tatum remains locked in, right? And while teams have reportedly been calling on Jaylen Brown, calling on Derrick White, it seems like while teams are still calling on that, the Boston Celtics is not in a place to want to move either one of those guys. They're trying to keep that core together. Brad Stevens saying this: we'll do our best to put the right group together. We've got our foundation, obviously Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and D. White and Peyton Pritchard. All those guys. That's a lot. All those guys that a lot of teams would love to have. Talking about that being their foundation. Now, if you have your foundational guys, you like to keep those guys and build off of them. And I think that's what the Boston Celtics are going to try to do here. While teams are going to try to see, and rightfully so, if I'm a team in the NBA and looking at what the Boston Celtics are doing, I'm calling them to try to see if I can get Jaylen Brown too. It just is what it is. If I was the Houston Rockets, I would have been calling to see before I made a KD trade, is it any possibility of anything that we can offer you that can get Jaylen Brown in here? I would be trying to do that too. Teams are right to be calling and try to pry any of these teams. Derrick White, Jaylen Brown, whoever it is. But if Brad Stevens has identified those guys as the foundation of their team, and now it comes about what are you going to do around those guys? And I think that's where Boston sits at. Boston sits in a place, too, going into the second round of the draft. They have the second pick in the second round. There are some really good talent, which we'll talk about here in a minute, that I think actually could help that team. Rasheer Felming is one of the guys that I think could absolutely help the Boston Celtics instrumentally when it comes down to it. So that's what you got to look at as well. But this is going to be a gap year in a way for the Boston Celtics, and how they do it and how they set themselves up to have a foundational, or to have something around their foundational guys is going to be interesting to see what type of risk that they're willing to take to build around that foundation and have something that when Jason Tatum is back being 100% healthy, that you still are going to be right back contending in that Eastern Conference. And people have talked about Boston too, like they're going to be all of a sudden some team that's going to be terrible next year. They're still going to be really good. Now, they're not going to be maybe a championship contender, but I could still see Boston easily going to the second round of the playoffs. So, we'll see how that ends up shaking out for the team. But overall, they seem to be committed to keeping their foundational guys, and we'll see if that ends up being the right move there. Let me know what you guys think on that down below. But with that said, I do want to take a look at some of the best prospects that are still in the second round of this draft, and there's a number of them that I think can really help teams right away. Rasheer Felming. I'm surprised Rasheer fell to the second round. Now, looking at some mocks, I shouldn't have been, but Rasheer is a guy that has a really high floor, right? And sometimes those are the guys that get pushed to the second round. As a defender, as a shot blocker, and as a three-point shooter at the 4 or the 5, being 6'9", 7'5" wingspan. He basically has the same physical makeup of a Jared Allen with Cleveland. I think that Rasheer Felming, a team that gets him, if he drops past the third, fourth, or fifth pick in the second round, you are going to get amazing value out of Rasheer Felming. So he's a guy that I definitely did not expect to be here, but it could be great values for teams that are here picking in the second round of this draft, and it could get very interesting if a team does decide to make a move for him, because I still think that Rasheer Felming has starter level upside. A team like Minnesota that does pick first in the second round as well, he can make a lot of sense for them. So we'll see what happens here. I don't personally think he makes it past the 76ers with the 5th pick in the second round. Personally, I think he brings a lot of what they need, especially with Yabusele probably leaving in free agency. Look out for Rasheer Felming and what that ends up looking like for him. Maximilian Reynolds is another one, legit size, has a crazy wingspan, crazy height as a center. Still a little bit raw, but out of Stanford. But I think that he's another guy that offers a really high floor that could help a lot of teams in the NBA if they decide to do that. He's going to be a little bit of a project, but I think what he brings in rim protection just off his pure size, what he brings in being a smart basketball player as well, I can see him being a bench big for a lot of teams in the NBA. So Maximilian Reynolds is definitely one. And everything I just said about him, you can almost say about Ryan Kalkbrenner too, the center out of Creighton. He's another guy that I think is one of the best prospects in the second round of this draft with a really high floor as well, personally. And then another one, high floor, Johnny Broome. Johnny Broome is a guy that I think that if you're talking about a bench player that can be tough, that goes out there and just gets it done, I could easily see Johnny Broome being a guy that averages like 10 and 6 at the NBA level just by being of pure toughness, desire, and drive. That is what Johnny Broome is potentially in the NBA level, and I like him a whole lot. But then when you talk about higher upside guy, Adu Thero is a guy that I think has tremendous upside here in the second round of this draft. I think he can be one of the better players taken in this draft in the second round of this draft as well. A small forward, power forward combo out of Arkansas. Go and look at this guy's game. You will see the high floor that he has there as well. And then Kobe Bria, another guy that's just a pure scorer. You can bring him off your bench scoring wise, and I think that he can do a lot for you as well. And then the last two guys I'm going to highlight here, Sion James, Tyrese Proctor. Tyrese Proctor, the point guard out of Duke, a bench point guard for you that can do some two-way things, that can distribute, doesn't turn the ball over a lot. I like him a lot there. And then Sion James also out of Duke. I think both these guys offer a really high floor, and they may project to be bench players at the next level, but I think there is still tremendous value out of these guys that you can get in the second round. And then I know I said those are the last two, but Rocco Zikarsky out of Australia, draft and stash potential here, very young, doesn't necessarily have a surefire NBA skill yet, but his size, the physicality that he brings, the fact that, he's a guy that's still developing as a basketball player, he's a guy that I like a whole lot as well. If you're talking about draft and stash, you're talking about a guy that you're going to give some time to develop in the G League, I think that he can turn out really well for you as well. There is some really good talent. And keep in mind, in that, I still didn't mention guys like Vladislav Golden out of Michigan, Hunter Salas, the point guard, shooting guard out of Wake Forest, is another guy. Alex Tui, another player out of Australia. There's some really good talent in the second round of this draft, and we'll see. And also look out for a lot of teams too, as undrafted free agents are going to be a thing in this draft as well. So look out for that. But that's my time for today. Make sure you guys are following us at NBA Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, NBA Central Show at gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the number one spot for everything basketball related. And like I like to end everything on, I see you guys the next time I feel like making a video, which will probably be today. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Breaks Media.